feel the music with the Sony Walkman.
The Sony Walkman is a tiny stereo cassette player with truly incredible sound.
You really feel the music, you really feel it. You really feel the music.
Put on a Walkman and see the world in a whole new light.
Sony Walkman.
The Walkman from Sony, the one and only.
If you remember using one of these when growing up, then you're probably a little bit too old to be watching a 19-year-old man ramble on the internet. But if you've never seen one, or you don't understand what they are, or even if you do understand what they are and you're feeling a little bit nostalgic, then this is the video for you. The first cassette was released in 1963 by Philips, and the Sony co-founder, Masaru Ibuka, would listen to them whilst on flights, and he used to fly these really long distances between the US, the UK, Japan and so on for press release and governing bodies talking to them and so on. And he found that the tape player he was using was way too bulky and he didn't like it, and he went to Norio Ohaya, I think that's how you pronounce it, not sure, and that was Sony's designer, who actually later went on to become the president of Sony. And he asked him to design something small and portable, and he did. He created the TPSL2. Norio presented a different model called the TCM50, which was a dictation device, and Masaru really didn't like it, so he sent it back and he told him, I don't like it, create something without the dictation side of things. I just want it to play music, that is it. And that's what he thought the general public would prefer, because dictation devices already existed for journalism, and he didn't see the point of creating another but smaller and worse dictation device, because that way the general public aren't going to want to buy it because it's just a dictation device, and journalists won't want to buy it either because they had better journalistic models. There'd be no point in buying the cheaper shitter one. So he went away anyway, and he presented him with the TPSL2. And the original one was just how we know it now, but it had some slightly different things on it. So first of all, the A and B slot for the two headphone jacks said Guys and Dolls, and it didn't actually say Walkman anywhere other than the box. So they ended up changing that. They removed Guys and Dolls and put A and B instead, and they removed they added a sticker saying Walkman, and later on actually went to engrave Walkman into the TPSL2 itself. So there are actually a few models of the TPSL2, and the final one wasn't even called the TPSL2, it was called the WM3. It was an all black model, black and silver, and it added the usage of metal tapes, because on the regular TPSL2 it had a high and low tone, and they changed that tone switch to the metal tape versus regular tape switch. Most famously, the TPSL2 has been shown in a lot of media, but Guardians of the Galaxy is really where it picked up a lot of value. And I mean value. That thing skyrocketed in price online. eBay and other sites went from selling them for a couple hundred, if not less, to 800 to 1,000 to even more nowadays. If you can find one in the box with the headphones and the original Guys and Dolls model, you could be spending 10 grand. It was later destroyed in the movies, and the main character, Peter Quill, Star-Lord, ended up using a Microsoft Zune, but that's a story for another day. The original TPSL2 was released in 1979 to the general public in Japan, and it didn't actually come to the West until 1980, where it really blew up. The original sales figures aren't fully known, but we think it did roughly 5,000 to begin with, and then some of the workers at Sony walked around Tokyo and a few other cities and they showed it off, and that's where it really picked up, and within the first 2 months they were looking more at 50,000. Once they came over to the US, it really blew up and sales figures went insane, and we don't actually know fully what they were. It was definitely in the hundreds of thousands, but that's it was still very expensive. And that's kind of what they wanted to change, the expense behind it. So they did. They took the body and they decided to do a plastic shell instead, and they rummaged around and they found literally every single screw, every single motor, every single solder joint that wasn't necessary for the device's function, and they removed it. They changed the slot mechanism, so rather than having a cassette bay for the cassette to sit on and then close the door, the cassette would go into the door where the main tape mechanism would be, that would then close, and that's basically how it worked, because it saved space. And that was called the WM2, which had released just a year later in 1981. That ended up selling significantly more models, and they did a few colours, the classic silver, red, and a couple of others, and that's kind of where the Walkman really picked up. And there was a lot of skepticism over it. There was even a town in Jersey that banned the use of the Walkman over safety concerns, because they thought, well, what if someone's walking over the street and they get hit by a car because they weren't focusing and they were listening to music, they couldn't hear traffic. And, you know, after removing the hotline button, there was a bit of a array about it, because the original TPSL2 had a hotline button, and you could press the button and you could use the speaker to actually talk to someone, so you know they'd be able to talk into the speaker and you'd hear it in the headphones, which to me doesn't really make sense, because they were very lightweight headphones and you could just take them off, it wouldn't be that difficult. But I suppose to adhere to everyone, they put it in anyway, and that is something they removed whilst removing like everything from the Walkman. I mean, let me tell you now, if you look at the inside of a TPSL2 and the inside of a WM2, it is a drastic difference. The inside of the TPSL2 looks like a jungle, genuinely. I've repaired some of these Walkmans myself. I'd like to do it as a hobby, and it is insane. But yeah, no, so there was a lot of controversy over it, but it did blow up, and you know, it is now probably one of the best-selling pieces of tech of all time, which is on par with Sony, really, because when they released the PS2, that became the best-selling console of all time. Like, Sony have created some of the best tech ever, and that hotline button has actually gone on to inspire a lot of new headphones. I mean, even the ones I'm wearing right now, they have an ambient sound mode. Even if I just put my hand and press it against the right cup, it creates this ambient sound mode, and it uses the speakers on the headphones to listen to things. So you could put it into that if you're walking down the street. So if you were feeling unsafe, you could do it to talk to family and friends. If they saw you and they wanted to talk to you, you can just do this. And again, personally, I just take my headphones off because it just seems a bit pointless, but it's there for people that want it. In 1982, they released the first radio model called the WM-F1, and it featured the regular tape mechanism, whilst also including a stereo radio for FM and AM. Obviously, nowadays you can only use the FM, but I've found some channels on AM. It's rare that I find them, but they do exist. And you know, that helped increase sales, and that helped to go on with the WM5, I believe. They released the Sports Walkman, and they had a F5 version of that, so you could listen to the radio. And a great thing that I found with the radio version of it is sometimes the batteries won't be quite enough to play the tape at the right speed, but the radio usually works for significantly longer than the tape does. So if you're out and about and you know you're going to be home soon, or somewhere where you can get some batteries, then you can just flip it to the radio section and it'll work whilst you carry on. And every year since 1982, it has progressed the tech. 1984, we saw the auto reverse come in, and it meant that you didn't have to take the tape out and flip it over. It would just automatically play side B, because it would have, on the tape head, it would have 2 play modes, whereas obviously normally it'd only have 1. And over time we got soft touch buttons, we got digital displays, we got smaller batteries. They moved to gum stick batteries, which nowadays I wouldn't recommend. There's nowhere that really makes decent ones, and they tend to leak really bad. But at the time it was a big change, and it meant they could make it smaller and smaller and smaller, and so on. And they even put the remotes and the controls in the headphones, which does mean that certain models you can't actually use without the original headphones. But if you bought them together and you had access, it would be a better option. And they got it so small that it was only just about the size of the tape itself, you know, just about the tape box, really. You know, one of these. So you think, if you have a look at the TPSL2 and then that, they managed to shrink it down quite drastically. I mean, look at the size difference, and they managed to get it about that small. I mean, that literally fits where the door fit on the TPSL2, and that is impressive. And moving on from that, they went on to create mini disc players, CD Discmans, and so on, all these different models, and they managed to get them all so small. Obviously you can't have them too small. There was like the smallest Discman, which literally had the disc hanging out of it, but they weren't really portable. That was more for if you wanted to have a cheap hi-fi system at home, and it was quite compact, especially if you don't have a lot of room. And you know, it was impressive, and they sold over 200 million Walkmans, tape Walkmans to be specific. And Walkman actually got added to the dictionary in 1986. Fun fact: the Walkman, the original model, not the TPSL2, the TCM50, actually got sent to the moon during the Apollo 11 space trips. It never actually landed on the moon, it only orbited the moon. But I mean, Masaru really must have hated that Walkman to send it all the way to space. That's wild. Anyway, I hope you like the video, but you might be asking, why am I making a Walkman video in the Big 26? The last Walkman to release was in like 2004 or something like that. It was the early 2000s. And you know, I think it's more important now than ever before to look into these old pieces of tech, Walkmans and iPods and other portable media players. They even still make some MP3 Walkmans and stuff to this day. With streaming still on the rise, still becoming more popular, and the difficulties with streaming, the subscription prices, the you know, Spotify's lossless audio that just really genuinely isn't lossless, or proper lossless that is, and all these problems that we had, and Netflix removing movies all the time. We really need to look back into almost regressing as a society. We can't always just be on our phones. We can't always be there doing everything all the time, because it distracts us. And with a Walkman, with one of these, and I wouldn't recommend the TPSL2, trust me. If you want a really good model of Walkman, the WM-F31 is the best one of all time, in my opinion. It works, it's lightweight, it's small-ish, so it can just fit in your pocket instead of going on your belt, but it has an option for a belt clip, it has metal, it has regular tape, it has all these different benefits, and a radio, obviously, if you do want to use something like that. And if you don't want to use a radio, get the other model, the WM-31. So it's either, if you want a radio, F31, if you don't, just 31. That's the, yeah. But if you want to get into this stuff, I'd really recommend it. Again, it doesn't have to be a Walkman. But trust me now, the audio quality on tapes and Walkmans are not nearly as bad as people make them out to be. And there's still artists to this day which use tapes. I'll give you a piece of evidence, actually. You know, I've got so many tapes. I mean, I must have a couple hundred now. But here you go, Hosier. His first album on tape. I actually bought this last year at some point, because he did a re-release of his first album, and he did it on tape, he did it on vinyl, CD, and all these things. And obviously there's other artists like Sabrina Carpenter and so on, and they've all released cassette versions of their songs. So it really is like, you will still be able to listen to new music on it. And if you're really that worried that your favorite artist won't have tapes, the solution: mixtapes. Download an album on Spotify, online, something like that. Find a way where you won't get interrupted by ads. Record it. Just go for it. I would recommend, do not go above 90 minutes for tapes. There are 120-minute tapes, and I know that sounds a lot more pleasing, but those tapes had to make the actual tape thinner instead of adding tape to the cassette itself, because obviously there's a certain limit of tape you can put in. And I think the problem is I mean, here's a 60-minute. It's about halfway. And if I can find a 90-minute real quick, here's one. It's almost touching. And that's the thing, is they do fill up, obviously. So all you need to do is just avoid 120 minutes. Deal with the fact that your playlists are only going to be an hour to 90 minutes. That's way more than enough time for most albums. That's way more than enough time for most trips. If you're going somewhere, take a couple with you. If you think that 90 minutes won't do enough, take another one, whatever it might be, and work like that, because those thinner tapes end up pulling and snapping, and that's when you end up with chewing. You probably heard it before, cassette players avoid them, they chew the tapes. They don't. They really don't. If you look after your tapes and you look after your player, you won't have that. If your tape player is chewing tapes, that means there's a fault with the player, not the tape. And that's what you have to remember, is these are old, so be careful where you buy them. If you've got the technical know-how and you think you can fix it yourself, be cautious, but get one. Repair it. You can get it cheaper. If you don't, just buy a refurbished one. There's no harm in it. You can just use it then straight out the box. There's plenty of companies out there that sell good priced real Sony Walkmans. eBay has some great sellers. Search up Retro Technical. That's not me. I know I use that name sometimes. I didn't realize he had that name, but he lives local to me. He's brilliant. I bought this TPS-L2 for him, and I have to admit it is in beautiful condition. Whereas I bought this quite cheap, and I have done some repairs to it, but just have a look. It's, you can't see, but I've had to glue stuff back on, and I messed it up a little bit. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot to be able to do something like that. And I would recommend to anyone, if you want one for daily usage, for you to be able to take out, unless you have the know-how, do not buy broken Walkmans, please. I want everyone to have the best experience with these as possible. And I would love to see a day where I can see everyone walking around with a good physical media device, because something that's great for me as well is I get a lot of messages, I get a lot of calls, and sometimes it's nice to be able to just put your phone down, stick on your Walkman, walk around the house, go out. If you don't need your phone, don't take it. If you want that break, you don't have to sacrifice the whole phone. You just have to give yourself something to distract yourself for a while. And there's other things as well. DVDs, VHS tapes. I probably wouldn't recommend VHS tapes to most people. I enjoy them, but DVDs are, they're very good. Blu-rays even, that you're seeing them more and more in charity shops. You can probably get the 4-for-1 deal, or you can get like the £1 Blu-ray. Personally, I would go for the 4-for-1 DVDs, but if you do want a better visual quality, go for the Blu-ray. I don't mind. There are some new films that aren't on them. Buy yourself a cheap old MacBook. The MacBook 12 A1376, I think it is. If I'm right, it might be A276. Get that one. It comes with a disc drive, a super drive in it. You can write DVDs. Not all DVD players can play those DVDs, but if you bought the MacBook, that specific MacBook has a HDMI port. Hook it up to your TV, watch it that way. There's so many ways of doing it. Just make sure that your DVD player, if you are going to write your own, can play it's DVD something, I don't remember. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Buy a cheap digital camera. Buy a little film camera. Actually, no, scrap that. Don't buy any film cameras unless you're a proper photographer. Film is extraordinarily expensive. Remember, you have to buy the film, you have to put it in, you have to load it correctly, because I've made that mistake before. If you load it incorrectly, it will just chew it up and ruin it. You have to then send it off, get it developed, get it back. By the time you've done all that, you've spent loads of money. If you've already bought a MacBook and you've bought a little Walkman, buy a little digital camera. Get a couple of SD cards, take it that way. Walk around, enjoy life. because that's what the point in the Walkman was. That's why they added a hotline button. That's why they added 2 headphone jacks. Do all these things, enjoy life, talk to your friends, and have a good day or night. See ya.